How to save a family from a blazing inferno. Nick Bostic's heroic act that changed his life forever. Nick Bostic, a troubled and aimless man, experienced a life-changing event one night. While driving down the streets of Lafayette, Indiana, he noticed a faint orange light at the edge of his vision. Initially, he didn't realize what he was seeing, but as he rolled past a two-story house, he suddenly realized that it was on fire. His immediate reaction was to hit the brakes and think, "Oh my God, that house is on fire." Nick Bostic had been through some tough times, but that night wasn't the worst. The 25-year-old, with a burly 6'3" frame and a scruffy beard that often accompanied a mischievous smile, was still navigating his way through a life that had been anything but easy. Bostic's childhood was marked by bouncing between his mom's home in Lafayette and his dad's in Arkansas, both of which failed to provide the love and security he craved. According to Bostic, if you were to ask his friends to describe him when he was a child, they would likely say he was a troublemaker. He often found himself in difficult situations, trying to make friends by using humor but never succeeding. As he grew older, his problems escalated, and he turned to using methamphetamines. He lost friends to suicide and struggled with his own desire to continue living. However, over the last few years, Bostic has been working to turn his life around. He stopped using hard drugs, has a girlfriend named Cara Lewis, and works as a pizza maker at Papa John's. Those who know him in the Lafayette area might describe him as a person with a kind heart who is still figuring out how to best use it. On the night of July 11th, 2022, Bostic had a small argument with his girlfriend, Cara Lewis, and left their apartment in a huff, intentionally leaving his phone behind. He drove to an auto parts store parking lot where he smoked some weed and took a moment to be alone. After about 15 minutes, he decided to head back home. It was on his way back just after midnight when he saw the faint orange glow of the burning house and heard the desperate cry for help. In a moment of panic and bravery, Bostic swiftly put his car in reverse and drove into the driveway. The house was already engulfed in flames, with the fire licking the walls and the front porch. As he got out of the car, he realized that he had left his phone at home, which made him anxious. He yelled into the darkness, hoping someone would hear him and come to help. Unfortunately, the car that passed by did not stop, and Bostic was left alone. Despite the fear, Bostic quickly headed to the back door of the burning house, fully expecting it to be locked. However, it was unlocked, and he rushed inside without hesitation. Date night was a significant occasion for the Barretts, who valued spending time together despite being a large family. The Barrett household was always bustling with activity, and their rented two-story, five-bedroom home was a hub for gatherings, barbecues, sleepovers, and outdoor games of volleyball. They also attended church every Sunday. On the fateful night, only 4 out of the 6 Barrett children were present at their rented two-story house. David, an assistant principal at Tecumseh Junior High School, and his wife Tiara had left the house to play darts down the street. Sayona, their 18-year-old daughter, was left in charge of her younger sister, 112-year-old Kalea. Shaylee, 13, was inside the house with a friend, while Kaylani, 6, was wandering around from room to room in search of a sleeping companion. Kaylani was not fond of sleeping alone. The lively and inquisitive little girl was so trusting that David was always concerned she might wander off with a stranger. On that particular night, Kaylani walked into Sayona's bedroom on the first floor, asking if she could sleep with her older sister. However, Sayona was not feeling well and had to work the next day. She instructed her sister to go to her own room and that they could sleep together another time. Sayona was startled by a loud bang that sounded like an explosion, and she woke up to find her room filled with smoke. She didn't know it then, but the fire had begun on the porch and caused a nearby propane tank to explode. At that moment, Sayona was only aware of the smoke and the heat from the flames that had spread to the living room. She couldn't believe it was happening and wondered if she was dreaming. But then she realized that she had to act fast and save her siblings. Sayona rushed up the stairs and quickly retrieved Kalea from her crib. She then went next door and woke up Shaylee and her friend, who were deep in sleep. However, when she reached Kaylani's room, she found that the little girl was not there. Panic set in as Sayona realized that Kaylani often slept in the living room, which was now engulfed in flames. As Nick Bostic rushed through the fiery hallway of the house, he observed the melting curtains as one of the many surreal things happening around him. He was frantically looking into rooms that were ablaze, trying to spot any signs of people inside. As Bostic climbed the stairs, he noticed that the ground floor was empty. But just as he began to ascend, he saw 4 faces appear at the top of the stairs, looking down at him in terror. "Your house is on fire! You need to get out!" he shouted. The girls quickly descended the stairs with Bostic urging them on. Once outside, they gathered together and caught their breath. "Is anyone else still inside?" Bostic inquired. Siona and the other girls outside were frantic, realizing that Kehlani was still missing. Bostic quickly ran back into the burning house without hesitation. As he made his way through the house, he saw that the fire had spread significantly. The smell was nauseating, and the smoke was thick and black, making it difficult for him to breathe. The intense heat was almost unbearable as he searched for Kehlani. Bostic rushed down the stairs, his eyes stinging from the smoke. He followed the sound of the crying until he saw a tiny hand reaching out from under the living room couch. Kehlani was there, coughing and crying, but thankfully alive. Bostic grabbed her and ran outside, where Siona and the other kids were waiting. They were all safe now, but the house was completely destroyed. Bostic struggled through the thick smoke with Kehlani in his arms, desperately searching for the way out. The heat was intense, and he could feel the flames licking at his skin. His eyes stung and watered as he stumbled blindly, disoriented and lost. The only visible thing in the dense haze was the faint glow of the lights leading upstairs, like beacons in the darkness. He tried to keep his bearings, but it was difficult to tell which way was which in the chaos of the burning house. Bostic ascended to the top of the stairs and stumbled, falling to the ground. In the midst of the raging fire, he had a moment of dread, thinking that they wouldn't make it out alive. However, he got back up, still holding Kehlani in his arms. He recalled seeing a window on the side of the house that wasn't yet engulfed by the flames, and he headed in that direction. When he reached the room, he quickly began tearing down the curtains and blinds from the window. As he did so, Kehlani's ankle got caught in a cord, causing him to slow down. With Kehlani still in his arms, Bostic ripped off the curtains and blinds from the window. He punched the glass with his right hand, but it didn't break. He tried again, this time putting all his strength into the punch. His fist smashed through the window, cutting his arm as he did so. Finally, a rush of fresh air filled the room. Bostic quickly knocked out the remaining glass shards from the frame. With the fire closing in on them, Bostic and Kehlani surveyed their options. The only escape route was out the window, but the idea of jumping terrified them both. The flames drew nearer, the heat growing more intense by the second. Bostic took a deep breath and stepped back, knowing what he had to do. Without a second thought, he charged forward, leaping out of the window with Kehlani clutched tightly to his chest. As they plummeted toward the ground, Bostic contorted his body to shield the little girl from harm. They landed with a thud on the grass below, shaken, but miraculously unharmed. As the firefighters arrived on the scene, Siona and the other children were quickly ushered away from the blazing house. A firefighter shouted out, "There may be a 6-year-old girl and a 23-year-old man still inside," as they rushed to put on their gear. Meanwhile, Siona asked anxiously, "Is the baby okay?" Suddenly, Bostic stumbled out from the side of the burning building, clutching Kehlani in his arms. The firefighters captured the moment on their body cameras as he handed the crying but unharmed girl over to them, before collapsing on the sidewalk, gasping for oxygen. Breathless, and with the house collapsing behind him, Bostic's only concern was the safety of the baby. "Is the baby okay?" he asked desperately. The minutes, hours, and days following the incident were hazy for him. He vaguely recalled the paramedics putting a tourniquet on his arm and being taken to the hospital. However, he could not recollect the moment when he was transferred to the hospital, or the treatment he received for the first-degree burns on his ankle, leg, and arm, and smoke inhalation. When he regained consciousness, he found himself with a breathing tube and his girlfriend by his side. Lying in bed, he pondered the events that had transpired. He believed that he had acted instinctively, and anyone else would have done the same in his position. However, outside the hospital, Nick Bostic's heroism was already being touted. The pizza delivery man who had risked his life by venturing into a burning house twice was a hero. A few days passed before Bostic was discharged from the hospital, and during that time, the Barretts invited him and Lewis over for dinner at the temporary place they were staying. David Barrett had been eager to express his gratitude to the man who had risked his life to save his family. As soon as David saw Bostic, he burst into tears and hugged him tightly, thanking him repeatedly. Bostic recalls, all he could say was, "Thank you, thank you." The incident had forever changed their lives. and the images captured on the firefighter's body cam were a reminder of the bravery that had saved Kaylani and her family. Bostic was invited by the Barretts to attend church with them, and they continued to invite him over for dinner multiple times. David believes that God used Bostic as a tool to save his family, and that he is being used as a tool to help Bostic in return. The fire left the Barretts without any possessions, but they have become closer as a family and to their community, who supported them by providing shelter and food while they searched for a new home. Kaylani, who sustained only a minor cut on her arm, has developed a sense of heroism after the incident, and proudly tells others about how she bravely jumped out of a window during the fire. Bostic has recovered from his burns for the most part, but he now experiences sensitivity to light due to the fire. However, the impact on his life has been much greater than physical injuries. Bostic and his girlfriend are now expecting a child. Furthermore, news of his heroism spread quickly, and a GoFundMe campaign to cover his hospital bills raised over $600,000, an amount that would change his life. Bostic wanted to offer some of the money to the Barretts to help them rebuild their lives, but David refused, insisting that the money was Bostic's and that he should use it to support his own family. David also introduced Bostic to a financial advisor to help him manage the funds wisely. As Bostic reflects on what happened, he realizes that it was both a close encounter with death and a fresh start. Even though he was the one who entered the burning building, it feels as if he was the one who was saved. "I feel like a different person, like I was given a second chance," he explains. In the past, he sometimes felt foolish, but that's not how he views himself now. Life has been challenging, and he knows the future will be too, but he's beginning to find his purpose. He's confident that he'll discover it for the first time.